Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Catherine and I like to just do fun things with reading here. It was my goal this year to read more, and I figured starting this YouTube channel would really help encourage me to be disciplined with that goal and hold me accountable. So I did read during January and February, and I kind of wanted to just do a wrap up of all the books that I read. I'm in the middle of cleaning, it's finally March, so some spring cleaning, and January was a very long month. It always is. February, I feel like a lot happened in February, even though it was the shortest month, but I was able to read a lot, so now I get to share it with you. So here we go. All right, I think that's better. I can't even totally see to the camera right now, but from what I can see, it looks a lot better. So the first book that I was reading in December was a memoir. It is called Never Saw Me Coming by Tanya Smith, and I gave it 3 stars. It was really interesting at first, and then I feel like she kind of lost the plots a little bit about what she was trying to tell us about, and there was a lot of repetition inside of it, but it was about how she kind of outsmarted the FBI with banking fraud. The thing is that it doesn't ever seem like she understands that she actually did do something wrong. She's just like, oh, you should, it was a little odd. It doesn't seem like she had any remorse about it or anything like that. She's just like, yeah, I did this. This is how I did it. And she has a twin sister, so that's part of it. But it was really interesting at first, and then kind of halfway through it got very repetitive. But I feel like all of those things, like scam artists, are very popular these days, and their stories are intriguing. So I did enjoy it, but I did end up giving it 3 stars out of 5. The other book that I started in December and finished in January was called The Fellowship of Puzzle Makers. And, let me see who that was by. That was by Samuel Burr, and I thought it was really cute. It was just like a fictional story about people who created puzzles, and there was a little mystery involved with this boy Clayton, who was kind of searching for his parents, and then he kind of went on a little adventure for that. But it kind of follows this main character, Pippa, and her fellowship group that she created for people that create puzzles, and it was very wholesome, and I really enjoyed it. I gave that 4 stars out of 5. The next book that I read was in January, and I read None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. I ended up giving it 4 stars, but it was based on Alex and gosh, what was the other character's name? No wonder people do these monthly wrap-ups, because I can't remember the name of this character in this book. Josie is her name. Okay, so None of This Is True is a psychological thriller with a character named Josie and Alex. Josie runs into Alex on Josie's 45th birthday, and she finds out that it's Alex's birthday too, they're birthday twins, and Alex has a podcast that she runs, and Josie says that she is figuring things out in her life, and then has thinks that she would be a wonderful person for this podcast, and it kind of just follows this podcast. And I thought that the way this was written was very interesting because of the podcast situation, and I did really enjoy it. It kind of has, a little bit some unreliable narrator tropes where you're not really sure if you can trust the main character or not. I did really enjoy it. There wasn't anything that was keeping me really going with that book. It was just okay, I'll keep reading. But to me, I didn't have a sense of urgency to finish it. I think if I stopped reading it, I would be okay with that, if that makes sense. I hate saying that about books because I know that authors put so much of their heart and soul into books, so I don't want to ever say anything that would hurt their feelings or not critique them well, but it just, for me, it wasn't keeping me going. The next book that I read in January was Perfect Little Children by Sophie Hannah. I gave that 3.5 stars. That was another psychological thriller. I did really enjoy one of the characters. Like, I still remember this character. Her name was Xana. And every time she was speaking, I loved it. I enjoyed every single part of that because she was a very, like, sassy, intelligent teenager, and I just loved the way they portrayed her. However, the actual premise and ending of the book, I was like, okay, this is okay. Again, I cannot think of the main characters' names. Okay, so the main character in Perfect Little Children, her name is Beth. And when she is on the way to drive her son to his football game, she sees some kids that she recognizes from her past, from like her former best friend's kids. But the thing is that they look exactly like they did the time that she saw them before, like 12 years ago. And she heard the same names being called for them. So she's exploring the whole time. She's like, what is going on with these kids? Like, I know I'm not going insane, blah, blah, blah. And then, I don't know, the ending was a little underwhelming to me because, like, they mentioned it as a possibility in the book, and then, I don't know, it just seemed, the way that it played out seemed very underwhelming. I don't know if psychological thrillers are for me, because the 2 psychological thrillers I read, I was like, okay, this is okay. So, Perfect Little Children, I gave 3.5 stars. I was intrigued to keep reading that one because I was like, what is going on here? Like, that one did keep me a little more interested. Alright, the next books, moving on to February. Yes. Oh my gosh, I forgot what month it was. Oh my god. I read a lot of books in February. I can't believe it's March already. Alright, so the first book that I read in February, my grandmother told me to tell you she's sorry. I can't speak. My grandmother told me to tell you she's sorry by Frederick Backman, and I gave that 4.5 stars. I thought that was really cute. I talked about it in a previous video. I thought the characters were written very well, and I love books that focus on relationships. It's a fictional story about a girl whose grandma passes away, and her grandmother kind of sends her on a little adventure to give people different apology letters, and it goes on this adventure, and I thought it was very cute, and it kind of helps restore, a little bit of a daughter-mom relationship as well, like the mom and the grandmother. I'm not wording this very well because the mom and the daughter don't have like a bad relationship, but it is frictional because just of the way that the daughter is, and the grandma in the story had a rocky relationship with the mom because she just wasn't always around and things like that, but then she was around for her granddaughter and was like a really great granddaughter, so her mom, saw that and blah blah blah. And I thought that was really wholesome. It's just, there were parts of the story that got very long for me, or I was just waiting for something else to happen. However, this book did remind me of Bridge to Terabithia, so it sent me back to my childhood. I think that's part of the reason that I love this character so much, is because there's a world between her grandmother and her, and that sent me back to my childhood with Bridge to Terabithia, and I thought that was so cute. The next book that I read was a romance book, Is She Really Going Out With Him by Sophie Cousins. And I gave that 3.5 stars. And I think I read that before my grandmother told me to tell you she's sorry. But I thought it was cute. There were some parts at the beginning that I was laughing out loud by. And I think I would actually change that now to 4 stars because I did think it was really cute. It just wasn't like a favorite read of mine. But there were a lot of parts that I was laughing out loud by. That is about a mom who is writing articles, and yeah, Is She Really Going Out With Him is about a mom who writes articles, and basically the company is going to bring in different people, and they think that her articles could use a change in context, and she decides to write about her kids picking out people for her to date, and that's kind of how it changes. And they love that idea, and there's someone else, is his name Will? Okay, well, her name is Anna Appleby, and I think his name is Will, if I remember correctly. And Will comes in with a new idea to kind of have a column that matches her column, or resembles her column, is similar, but like in a different way. So you have 2 articles that resemble each other somehow, but have a different take on it. So they're both columnists writing articles. And he comes in and he's kind of Anna's rival because he's new, he's ambitious, and he has a lot of ideas and things like that, and blah, blah, blah. It kind of seems like he's trying to take one over on her, do one like better than her. And it just kind of explores the different dates that Anna goes on, and then eventually, you know, things happen where, oh, Will's involved, and yeah, it was really cute, so I would give it 4 stars. Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I'm counting that. I still have 1 chapter left, so I'm not rating it. I've been listening to the audiobook, so that's why I have 1 chapter left, because I'm waiting for my credits to come back again. So I just haven't rated it because I don't know how the ending is. I like it. I don't know if like romance is my genre preferred. Like, I think honestly just I like fiction because I really liked Fellowship of Puzzle Makers, and I really liked My Grandmother Told Me to Tell You She's Sorry. Yeah, it's cute. I don't have any like specific things to say about it. I know people like love Emily Henry and things like that, so I think it's okay. It's cute. And then I read 3 other stories that I did really enjoy. I read Homegoing by Yagiasi. I gave that 5 stars. Oh my goodness. I have like a new favorite author. That was amazing. I could not put that book down. I feel like I learned so much. I don't even know, like, if I describe it, I would not do it justice. So I'm just gonna read the synopsis of the book from like Goodreads. 2 half-sisters, Effia and Essie, are born into different villages in the 18th century Ghana. Effia is married off to a Englishman and lives in comfort in the palatial rooms of Cape Coast Castle. Unbeknownst to Effia, her sister Essie is imprisoned beneath her in the castle's dungeons, sold with thousands of others into Gold Coast's booming slave trade and shipped off to America, where her children and grandchildren will be raised in slavery. One thread of Homegoing follows Effia's descendants through centuries of warfare in Ghana as the Fante and Asante nations wrestle with the slave trade and British colonization. The other thread follows Essie and her children into America. From the plantations of the South to the Civil War and the Great Migration, from the coal mines of Pratt City, Alabama, to the jazz clubs and dope houses of 20th century Harlem, right up through present day, Homegoing makes his story visceral. Did I just say his story? Homegoing makes history visceral and captures with singular and stunning immediacy how the memory of captivity came to be inscribed in the soul of a nation. Generation after generation, Yagiasi's magisterial first novel sets the fate of the individual against the obliterating movements of time, delivering unforgettable characters whose lives were shaped by forces beyond their control. Homegoing is a tremendous reading experience, not to be missed by an astonishingly gifted young writer. And it was amazing. Like, that is a 5-star, one of my new all-time favorite reads. And Yagi does have another book that I cannot wait to read. I think, what is it called? Transcendent Kingdom. But I would seriously, I would recommend anyone to read that book. It was so fascinating to me, and it was so interesting. It kept me going. It's historical fiction. I don't think I realized going into it that it was historical fiction. I thought it was just a fictional story, but I guess it does make sense reading more of the synopsis that it would be historical fiction. Very fascinating. Totally recommend. Highly recommend. Not totally. Oh my god. Blah. The other 2 books, I read 2 other books in February. So I read Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed, and I gave that 5 stars at the time. I'm not sure if I would still give it 5 stars, but at the time I gave it 5 stars. I think I'm okay with, we'll leave it at that for this video. But the more I read, I kind of change my mind about some things, and I'm like, oh, this writing is a lot more sophisticated or creative, and I see kind of how plots work and things like that. But Such a Fun Age, I thought it was good. It kept me going. It kept me intrigued and interested. And it was about a babysitter who was, I should say, specify. It was about a black babysitter who was babysitting for a white child, and she was at the grocery store late at night, and she was accused of kidnapping the baby. And I kind of thought that this story was going to follow that a lot more. I thought it was going to follow the exact problem of being accused and blah, blah, blah. But that was kind of just the first page, basically. But that was the first page, basically. So I was like, okay, where are we going to go with this? And it kind of followed the idea of once the mom of the person she was babysitting found out, she kind of was thinking the whole time, what do I do about this? How do I make the situation right? And she finds out that things were recorded, and she's like, okay, what do I do with this information? There's also is some romance involved and some character connections in it, and I thought the connections were really interesting. It really makes you question who to believe, and I think that's why I gave it 5 stars. It was whose side do you believe? I feel like the main character was kind of in a tough spot with that too. She has some really good friends that I found very entertaining, and I listened to part of it on audiobook. I did read some of it as a physical book, but when I was listening to the audiobook, her friends reminded me of the friends from Proud Family a little bit. That's just what they sounded like. But I did think that they were really good friends. They cared about her and they were fun. And then this boy Kelly comes along, and he knows the mom of the girl that she's babysitting for. So that's where those character connections kind of come into play, and he kind of makes her question some things about the family that she's babysitting for. And I found that very fascinating. I think anytime where you really have to question character's character, anytime you have to question people's character in movies or books, and as the outside person, witness it and make a judgment for yourself, I find that very fascinating. So that's why I gave that 5 stars. The next book that I read, I was really excited about because it was just in the library and I was browsing. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the author that wrote Crazy Rich Asians. and I just figured I would read another book by him, so I picked up Sex and Vanity by Kevin Kwan, which I found out later, like after I read it, it was a retelling of You with a View. Is that what it was a retelling of? I haven't read the book that it was a retelling of. I haven't read the book of what it was a retelling of, but it was a retelling of A Room with a View. So if you read that, then it probably has similar themes. I found it very fascinating at first. I really liked the characters, and it was very interesting at first, just they were at a wedding and had all of these extravagant things for the wedding. And the characters, I loved the characters. I feel like that's one of Kevin Kwan's specialties, is writing characters and learning about cultural aspects. Yeah, learning about cultural aspects from different characters. It followed a woman who was like trying to basically avoid falling in love with this other character named George Zhao, and it was interesting. She's Chinese American, so it also follows that a little bit, her exploring her own identity. And I did end up giving it 4 stars out of 5 stars. So I would recommend it. I think I would recommend all of these books except for Never Saw Me Coming by Tanya Smith. I think if it came out like as a movie or something, it would be interesting, or as a show. It just, like I said, kind of got very repetitive at parts, and now like the more and more I've read, I don't know if I would have given it 3 stars anymore. Like, I found the premise to be interesting. I mean, it is based on a true story, and I thought that was interesting as well. Like, it was interesting to hear her story on how she outsmarted the FBI kind of with this bank fraud. But I don't know, I would recommend the other ones more. My favorite that I would definitely recommend, like I said, would be Homegoing. I would 100% recommend that to like everyone. I think it was, I can't even describe it. It was confusing at first because there's a lot of different characters to keep track of, and she did kind of put a tree with how everyone is related in the beginning to each other, and that was helpful to reference. I had to reference that often, although it was still a little confusing, but I think it was well worth it. If you guys made it to this point in the video, please put a shamrock emoji down below. I'd love to see if you guys want me to do another monthly wrap-up video. I love watching people's monthly wrap-ups just to see what books they would recommend, what books they did finish reading, and yeah, have a great day, guys.